On the night of July 3, 2026, Nolan Wells made his family salmon for dinner. He was 18 years old. He was the kind of son who cooked for his parents. When he was done, he hugged his mother Christine, kissed her, and said, "Hey Mom, I'm about to go. I love you." And then he left. He was going to spend the night at a friend's house, ahead of a 4th of July boat trip to Horn Island, a pristine wilderness island off the Mississippi Gulf Coast, 10 miles from shore. No buildings, no phone signal, no facilities, just open beach and Gulf water, and the kind of day that teenagers from South Mississippi have been spending out there for generations. Christine Wansley never saw her son alive again. His body was found face down in the water off the shoreline of Horn Island on the morning of July 6th, 2 days after he was last seen, wearing the same blue swim trunks he had been photographed in on the 4th of July. He was found by a National Park Service ranger. His friends made it home. Nolan did not. What happened in the hours between the last confirmed sighting of Nolan Wells at approximately 3 o'clock in the afternoon on July 4th and the discovery of his body 2 days later? That question has not been answered. Not by the Jackson County Sheriff's Office, which says it does not yet have the autopsy results and is asking the public to come forward with information. Not by the independent autopsy that was commissioned by the family's attorney and paid for by former NFL quarterback Colin Kaepernick, which has not yet been publicly released. Not by the FBI, which has joined the investigation on the digital evidence. Not by the over 60 witnesses who have been interviewed. Not by the GPS data that tracked the boat's movements that day. Not by the phone whose contents everyone is waiting to examine. Nobody knows. And in the vacuum left by that unknown, 2 separate stories are being told about what may have happened to Nolan Wells. One is about water, about rip currents and barrier islands, and the ways the Gulf of Mexico can take a life so quickly and so silently that nobody sees it happen, even in a crowd. The other is about America, about Mississippi, about what it means to be a young black man in the company of white friends on an island with no witnesses, and about what a country, with the history that this country has, is supposed to make of that. This video covers everything that is known, every confirmed fact, every verified contradiction, every piece of GPS data, audio recording, and witness account that has been made public. And it covers the questions that remain open, labeled clearly as questions, because they are still unanswered. If you are not yet subscribed to this channel, please take a moment to do that now. This is a developing story, and we will follow it until there are answers. Hit subscribe and the bell so you're here when they come. Let us start at the beginning. Nolan Xavier Wells was born and raised in Ocean Springs, Mississippi, a city on the Gulf Coast between Biloxi and Pascagoula, known for its arts community, its historic downtown, and its proximity to the water that defines life in that part of the state. He was the kind of person that everyone who knew him seems to have wanted to talk about after he was gone. His football coach at Ocean Springs High School, Jake Bramlett, said, "He was the kind of son, teammate, friend, and student that every coach hopes to have in a program." Nolan was so much more than an outstanding football player. He carried himself with humility, treated others with respect, worked hard, and led by example. His character spoke louder than his accomplishments, and he was loved deeply by his teammates and coaches. His high school principal, Dr. Jacob Dykes, said, "He will be remembered as an extremely kind and hard-working young man who left a lasting impression on his teachers, coaches, teammates, and community." His father, Elmore Wansley, described him as the funniest kid in our family. His mother, Christine, said he was the kindest soul who loved everyone and never met a stranger. At the July 10th press conference, both parents told a story that had been living in the family's memory. A story about an argument they were having, the kind of argument that married couples have, when a very young Nolan ran into the room in his diaper and started dancing. Just started dancing to ease the tension. That was Nolan. He played wide receiver. He had the kind of height, 6 feet 1 inch, 180 pounds, that made him a presence on a football field. On National Signing Day in February 2025, he had signed to play for Southwest Mississippi Community College, standing with his teammates and telling a local news camera, "It's truly a blessing being here with some of my best friends and teammates, and most of us are all going to college together. It's just truly a blessing." He was supposed to return to Southwest Mississippi on Monday, July 7th, to start training for the upcoming football season. His father told Good Morning America he was supposed to go back to camp Monday. He was going to continue to pursue his dreams. He had a future he was building. He was building it with friends. He was building it on a football field. He was building it in a state that, as we will explain in detail later in this video, carries a history that made his death land differently in the national conversation than it might have anywhere else. Horn Island is the largest of the Mississippi-Alabama Barrier Islands, a designation that tells you something about what kind of place it is. These are not resort islands. They are not developed. They do not have hotels or restaurants or lifeguard stations or phone signal. Horn Island is 4.2 square miles of sand dunes and beaches, sea oats and saw palmetto groves and pine trees. It is a federally protected wilderness area, part of the Gulf Islands National Seashore. The only permanent structure is a small ranger station near the center of the island. There is no commercial ferry service. You can only reach it by private boat or charter. For the teenagers and young adults of South Mississippi, Horn Island is the spot. That is how a former youth sports director who grew up in the area described it to Mississippi Today: the spot for teens and early 20-somethings during the summer months, because it is a place away from adult supervision and police presence. On the 4th of July, the shoreline fills with boats and people. The United Cajun Navy's Vice President Brian Trasher, who joined the search for Nolan, described the beach on July 4th as packed. Boats everywhere, people celebrating, some drinking, the kind of scene that 4th of July celebrations on American waterways have looked like for decades. But Horn Island has something that casual visitors and first-timers do not always appreciate until they are already in trouble. The water around it can turn without warning. The northwestern tip of Horn Island, where Nolan's body was eventually found, is known specifically for its currents. Jackson County Coroner Bruce Lind, who has seen the aftermath of those currents over his career, described them directly. The currents are strong out there, especially on that end of the island. There have been drownings out in the barrier islands many times over the years. A boat operator who frequently works those waters, speaking anonymously to NBC News due to the attention around the case, described the water around Horn Island in terms that anyone considering a trip there should hear. "I know people that have grown up out there, that have died out there. It'll humble you very quick. I don't care what kind of shape you're in. Those currents can get you. And before you even realize you're in trouble, you're gone." Mississippi Today's reporting on the case cited a rip current expert who noted that the northwestern tip of Horn Island is known for rip currents, and that one was present and strong on July 4th. The Park Service, Coast Guard, and various agencies had issued safety advisories about water conditions in the Barrier Island area for the holiday weekend. "There are rip currents," the expert said, "even the strongest swimmers can't break out of." Brian Trasher, the Cajun Navy's vice president, told CNN that he believes a wave carried Nolan's body to the shore, where the ranger found him 2 days later, in the marsh at the edge of the island. That is the environmental reality of Horn Island, a federally protected wilderness. 10 miles of open gulf between the island and the mainland. No phone signal, no lifeguards, no infrastructure. Strong, deceptive currents at the northwestern end that have taken lives before. On a holiday weekend, crowded with boats and people, some of whom had been drinking. That is the place Nolan Wells was left on the afternoon of July 4th, 2026. Let us walk through July 4th, as precisely as the available records allow, because one of the things that makes this case so contested is that almost every element of the timeline has been disputed in some way. So here is what official records and confirmed accounts show, separated from what is alleged or disputed. At 9:56 in the morning, according to GPS data obtained by CBS News from the Mississippi Department of Marine Resources, the boat left from a private dock in the Ocean Springs area. 3 of Nolan's friends were on the boat. Nolan was on the boat. At 11:14 in the morning, GPS data confirms the boat arrived at Horn Island. At approximately 3 in the afternoon, by all accounts, Nolan Wells was last seen alive. His friends say they last saw him around 3 in the afternoon. The Jackson County Sheriff's Office confirmed this. The GPS data is consistent with this timeline. At 4:31 in the afternoon, GPS data confirms the boat left the island without Nolan. That is the most important fact in this entire story. At 4:31 in the afternoon on July 4th, a boat left Horn Island without an 18-year-old who had arrived on it that morning. The GPS data does not lie about that. The boat left. Nolan was not on it. What happened in the gap between 3 in the afternoon and 4:31 in the afternoon, and between the boat's departure and Nolan's body being found 2 days later, is where every contested element of this case lives. At approximately 4 in the afternoon, audio recordings released by ABC News on July 16th captured a teenager on the boat calling a private towing company. The caller said, "We're sinking, can y'all please come?" The dispatcher asked, "And is everyone on board and in good health otherwise?" The caller responded, Yeah, everyone is on board. Everyone is on board." The caller said those words at approximately 4 in the afternoon. The boat left the island at 4:31. Where was Nolan at 4 in the afternoon, when a caller told the towing company everyone was on board? That question has not been answered publicly. After leaving the island, GPS data shows the boat traveled into Fort Bayou at 5:52 in the afternoon and returned to the dock at 6:06 in the afternoon. That night, the boat went to the Fort Bayou boat launch at 7:19, was taken out of the water, and traveled over land to its owner's home in Biloxi. It is unclear which portions of the return trip involved towing rather than self-propulsion. At approximately 11 at night on the night of July 4th, a friend of Nolan's contacted the U.S. Coast Guard. The Coast Guard confirmed this call, but told WOX the contact did not require Coast Guard assistance. No further details about that call have been made public. At 11:07 at night, Christine Wansley received a call from Warren, one of the boys who had been on the boat with Nolan. She did not publicly detail the full content of that call in her statements. She then checked her son's Life 360 location app and Snapchat location data, which showed conflicting location information. Around midnight, Christine Wansley made calls to local law enforcement. There was confusion about which agency had jurisdiction, given that Horn Island is federal land. Eventually, the Jackson County Sheriff's Office opened a report. That night, Nolan's parents met a deputy in a McDonald's parking lot and shared what they knew. They also attempted to retrieve Nolan's phone and his car. They say they had issues getting these items back from his friends. On the morning of July 5th, before any official search had been organized, Nolan's father, Elmore Wansley, got on a boat and went to Horn Island himself, with Nolan's football coach, to search for his son. The official search began at 12:26 in the afternoon on July 5th, when the Coast Guard received a formal assistance request from the Jackson County Sheriff's Office. An urgent marine information broadcast was issued. A helicopter was sent. Multiple agencies joined: the Gulf Islands National Seashore, the U.S. National Park Service, the U.S. Coast Guard, the Mississippi Department of Marine Resources, the Mississippi Department of Wildlife, Fisheries and Parks, the Biloxi Fire Department, the Harrison County Sheriff's Office, the Jackson County Fire Service, and the United Cajun Navy, a Louisiana-based nonprofit volunteer search and rescue organization. Christine Wansley posted on social media, searching for her son, asking anyone who had been at Horn Island to come forward. Her posts gained traction. People shared them. The United Cajun Navy mobilized. Their aircraft took to the air before 6 in the morning on July 6th. At approximately 8:45 in the morning on July 6th, the Jackson County Sheriff's Office received a call reporting a body found at the northwestern tip of Horn Island. The body had been discovered by a U.S. National Park Service ranger. Nolan's family was asked to come to the Lake Mars boat launch. They were met by Sheriff Ledbetter and Coroner Bruce Lind. They were taken to the coroner's office in Pascagoula to identify the body. Just before 1 in the afternoon, on July 6th, Christine Wansley posted on Facebook, confirming that the body found on Horn Island was her son. Coroner Bruce Lind gave a brief initial statement. There were no immediate, obvious signs of foul play or trauma on Nolan's body. The swimsuit he was wearing matched the one he had been photographed in on July 4th. Because of the condition in which the body was found, having been in the water for 2 days, Lind requested that the autopsy be conducted at the Mississippi State Medical Examiner's Office, with the capacity to definitively determine whether any trauma or foul play existed that might not be immediately visible. The body of Nolan Xavier Wells was formally identified through dental records on July 7th. The investigation into Nolan Wells's death is centered on a set of contradictions that have not yet been resolved. We are going to go through each one carefully, because these are the questions that the district attorney, the grand jury, and Nolan's family are all waiting to have answered. The first and most significant contradiction is about why Nolan was not on the boat when it left. Sheriff John Ledbetter told ABC News, "From what we understand, he chose to stay there." Jackson County Chancery Judge Ashley Cole, whose stepson Warren was one of the boys on the boat, made a Facebook post stating that Nolan made a decision to stay on the island. She said the boys left early because the boat started taking on water. Cole said she graduated high school with Nolan's mother, that they are from the same community, and that her son has fully cooperated with law enforcement. That is the account from the friend's side. Nolan chose to stay and planned to get back to shore with a different group. Nolan's mother, Christine Wansley, disputes this. She told Good Morning America that Nolan would not have voluntarily separated from his group. His father, Elmore Wansley, said, "We always taught him, if you go with a group, you stay with the group. If you go with 5, you come back with 5. Do not separate from the group." He always said, "Yes, sir," so he knew to stay with his group. Attorney Ben Crump added a specific element to this contradiction. He said that the boys on the boat told investigators Nolan was going to stay and talk to a girl, but the girl, Crump said, told investigators that Nolan told her he was going back to the boat. "They're not saying the same thing," Crump said. "One of them is telling the truth. One is not. We have to get to the bottom of that." That is the first contradiction: why Nolan stayed and whether he chose to. The second contradiction involves Nolan's phone. When Christine Wansley checked Life 360 on the night of July 4th, it showed Nolan's phone was back on land, but his Snapchat location showed something different. And when the family retrieved Nolan's phone from his friend's house, Christine went through it and found something that she said was unusual. There were no photos or videos on his Snapchat from that day. Nolan was, by his mother's account, someone who was usually capturing and posting everything. What teenager would leave their phone behind if they're gonna stay on this island? Attorney Crump asked pointedly. Christine Wansley told reporters she believes something may have been deleted from the phone. That allegation has not been confirmed or refuted by investigators. The FBI has been brought in specifically to assist with examining the digital evidence. Crump said his team and Jackson County investigators will conduct a mutual inspection of Nolan's phone, with experts from each party present, to determine what the device contains. The third contradiction involves a video that circulated widely on social media. In the days after Nolan's death, a video was shared widely that some people said captured Nolan in a confrontation on the island. Crump himself mentioned the video at a press conference, saying that multiple people had identified a voice in the video as Nolan's, saying, "Give me my freaking phone. What are you freaking doing?" But on July 13th, Trayston Shepard, a friend of Nolan's who was also on the island that day, came forward on Good Morning America and said the voice in that video was his, not Nolan's. "That's the video I am referring to, and that's me yelling," Shepard said. He is one of Nolan's friends who has since received death threats for speaking publicly about the case. The Jackson County Sheriff's Office has not confirmed the existence of any altercation involving Nolan on the island. They have asked anyone with photos, videos, or eyewitness accounts of unusual activity on Horn Island on July 4th to come forward. That public appeal is ongoing. The fourth contradiction involves the towing company call. At approximately 4 in the afternoon, ABC released audio of a teenager calling a private towing company and saying everyone is on board. This was around 4 in the afternoon. The boat left the island at 4:31, according to GPS data. If everyone was on board at 4 in the afternoon, what changed in the 31 minutes before the boat departed without Nolan? That timeline has not been explained publicly. The investigation into Nolan Wells' death involves multiple agencies and parallel tracks. The Jackson County Sheriff's Office is leading the primary investigation. Sheriff John Ledbetter confirmed that over 60 witnesses have been interviewed, including the 3 friends who were on the boat with Nolan. The Sheriff's Office has been publicly asking for any additional information, photos, videos, eyewitness accounts, from anyone who was on or near Horn Island on July 4th. The Mississippi State Medical Examiner's Office conducted the official autopsy on July 7th, the day after Nolan's body was identified through dental records. The results of that autopsy have not been released publicly. State officials have said the medical examiner is waiting on a toxicology report before finalizing the cause and manner of death. The Federal Bureau of Investigation joined the investigation at the request of the Sheriff's Office to assist with examining digital evidence. Sheriff Ledbetter confirmed this on July 15th. He noted that the involvement of the FBI is not unusual in cases where Horn Island, federal land, is involved, and that the agencies frequently cooperate. The FBI also confirmed it is working to address interstate threats that were received by individuals related to this matter, referring to the death threats that have been sent to some people connected to the case. The independent autopsy was commissioned by the Wells family's attorney, Ben Crump, and paid for by former NFL quarterback Colin Kaepernick. The body was transported from Mississippi to Washington, D.C. for the examination, specifically to ensure it was conducted by a doctor with no ties to Mississippi law enforcement. The results of this independent autopsy have been described as coming soon by Crump since July 11th, but have not been publicly released as of this recording. The Jackson County District Attorney's Office, led by D.A. Angel Myers McElrath, met with the Wells family and their legal team on July 15th. Crump confirmed after that meeting that once the sheriff's office investigation is complete, the DA's office will present the case to a grand jury. He described this as standard procedure for most unnatural or suspicious deaths in Jackson County. DA McElrath will ultimately decide whether the death involved a prosecutable crime. The mutual inspection of Nolan's phone, by experts from both the family's legal team and the county investigators, was agreed upon at the July 15th meeting. That inspection has not yet been completed or publicly reported. Ben Crump has publicly cast doubt on the possibility that Nolan drowned. He pointed out that Nolan was a strong athlete who knew how to swim. He said, "If Wells had drowned, somebody would have seen him struggling or offered help." Crump's point about swimming ability is understandable from the family's perspective, but it is important to be honest about what the National Drowning Prevention Alliance and water safety experts consistently confirm. Drowning does not always look like drowning. It can be fast, it can be silent. It does not always involve visible struggling. Strong swimmers drown too, particularly when currents are involved. The Cajun Navy Vice President Brian Trasher, who was present in the search and spoke to multiple people who were at Horn Island on July 4th, directly addressed this. He confirmed strong rip currents were present that day. He believes a wave carried Nolan's body to the shore, where the ranger found him. A boat operator who regularly works the waters around Horn Island spoke to NBC News anonymously and said something that directly addresses the swimming ability argument. "I know people that have grown up out there, that have died out there. It'll humble you very quick. I don't care what kind of shape you're in. Those currents can get you, and before you even realize you're in trouble, you're gone." Coroner Bruce Lind has noted that his office has received numerous drowning victims from the Mississippi Barrier Islands over the years. He said the currents, particularly at the northwestern end of Horn Island, are strong and dangerous. None of this proves that Nolan drowned. The autopsy has not reached a public conclusion. What it does establish is that the water around Horn Island has the documented capacity to take a strong person's life, quickly and without witnesses. That is not speculation. That is the coroner's statement and the testimony of people who work those waters professionally. The question of whether Nolan drowned accidentally or whether something else happened before he entered the water is precisely what the autopsy, the toxicology, and the phone data are meant to determine. To understand why the death of Nolan Wells has become a national story and not simply a local tragedy, you need to understand Mississippi. Mississippi has the largest percentage black population of any state in the United States. It also has one of the most documented histories of racial violence in the country. The 1955 lynching of Emmett Till, a 14-year-old black boy from Chicago who was murdered while visiting family in the Delta, remains one of the most notorious examples of racially motivated violence in American history. The murder of 3 civil rights workers in 1964, James Chaney, Andrew Goodman, and Michael Schwerner, killed by Ku Klux Klan members with the complicity of local law enforcement, became a defining moment of the civil rights era. In recent years, the state has continued to wrestle publicly with that legacy. In September 2025, less than a year before Nolan Wells died, the body of 21-year-old DeMartravion Trey Reed was found hanging from a tree on the Delta State University campus in Cleveland, Mississippi. For many people, the image invoked the history of lynching. The state medical examiner ruled it a suicide. The family hired Ben Crump. An independent autopsy was conducted. As of this recording, Crump's office has not released those results. Mississippi Today, the state's nonprofit investigative news organization, has reported in recent years on state autopsies of black homicide victims that were later found to be incorrect, including cases where state investigators missed obvious signs of police brutality. That is the context in which Nolan Wells' death is being interpreted by many people, particularly many Black Americans. The photographs from the 4th of July trip show Nolan on the boat with his friends. He towers above them, smiling, his arm around shoulders, and he appears to be the only Black person in the group. CNN described those photographs as something of a Rorschach test for American race relations in 2026. For many people who saw the photographs, the immediate reaction was shaped by the accumulated weight of everything Mississippi represents in American history. A young Black man, white friends, a remote island, Mississippi. He did not come back. Ben Crump said explicitly why he was brought in. The history of Mississippi is something that they don't just read about in books, but it's a lived experience for many Black Americans. He said the family hired him because they do not trust that Mississippi law enforcement will conduct a fair investigation. Jackson County NOC President Curly Clark took a more measured public position. He told Vox that the NOC is following the investigation closely to ensure no racial discrimination occurs, but asked people not to jump to conclusions before the facts are known. The NOC is going to ensure that the tragedy will be fully investigated, Clark said, but we do not want anyone to jump to conclusions before the facts are known. Tyler Perry is helping pay for Nolan's funeral. Colin Kaepernick is paying for the independent autopsy. Spike Lee showed up to the press conference in New York in person to show support for Wells's family. Filmmaker, football player, artist, all showing up because the story reached them and they saw something in it that felt familiar. Dozens of demonstrators marched in Ocean Springs, Nolan's hometown, in solidarity with the family, calling for more transparency in the investigation. It is important to be clear about what we know and what we do not know with respect to race in this case. No evidence of a racially motivated act has been confirmed. No evidence of any criminal act at all has been confirmed. The cause and manner of Nolan's death are officially undetermined, pending autopsy and toxicology results. What is confirmed is that a Black 18-year-old went to an island with white friends on the 4th of July, was not on the boat when it left, and was found dead in the water 2 days later, and that his death is being investigated as a potentially suspicious death, with an independent autopsy, an FBI digital review, a grand jury referral, over 60 witness interviews, and the involvement of civil rights attorneys, national civil rights leaders, a nationally prominent filmmaker, and a former NFL quarterback. That level of response tells you something, not about what happened on Horn Island, but about what the story means to the people who are watching it. As the case has gained national attention, something has happened that needs to be addressed directly. The people who were on that boat with Nolan have been subjected to death threats. Ashley Cole, the Jackson County Chancery judge whose stepson Warren was one of the boys on the boat, posted publicly on July 9th that her family was receiving numerous death threats online. She shared screenshots of the threats. She noted that her family had not yet had the opportunity to speak with the Wells-Wansley family or their attorney, but that they were willing to communicate directly with them. Cole also disclosed something worth noting. She graduated high school with Christine Wansley. They knew each other. They are, in Cole's words, from the same community. She said her family mourns Nolan's loss with the Wells family. Treston Shepard, a friend of Nolan's, also Black, who was on the island that day, told ABC News that he and other friends have also received threats. He said, "It worries me for my friends. It worries me for my family." Shepard is the person who came forward to clarify that the voice in the widely circulated confrontation video was his, not Nolan's. He appeared on Good Morning America. He called Nolan his best friend. He is grieving too, and he is receiving threats. The FBI confirmed it is working to address those interstate threats. This is an element of the story that the loudest voices online have sometimes overlooked. Among the people who are receiving threats in connection with this case is a young black man who was Nolan's best friend, who was also on that island, who has come forward publicly with information, and who is now living with the fear that comes from being at the center of a story that has turned into something larger than any of them anticipated. On Monday, July 20th, Nolan Wells was buried. The funeral was held at Center Point Church in Ocean Springs. Visitation ran from 9 to 11 in the morning. The funeral followed. A celebration of life was held afterward at the Jackson County Fairgrounds. Among the eulogists, attorney Ben Crump and the Reverend Al Sharpton, Christine Wells Wansley spoke to her son's mourners directly. "Share his stories," she said, "and never stop saying his name. As long as we continue to remember him, his light will continue to shine through us all." Ben Crump addressed the crowd with a challenge to the justice system. "Whatever you would do for your children, if they were on that boat on Horn Island on July 4th, we want you to do it for Nolan Wells." Nolan Wells was buried 16 days after he was last seen alive, without answers, without autopsy results, without a definitive cause of death, without knowing, officially, what happened between 3 in the afternoon on July 4th, and the moment a park ranger found his body face down in the water at the northwestern tip of Horn Island 2 days later. His mother said she will not stop asking questions until she knows. Any complete account of the Nolan Wells case has to address the role of social media, because it has shaped public perception of this case in ways that sometimes conflict with the confirmed facts. AI-generated photos and videos began circulating shortly after Nolan's death, purporting to show what happened on the island. They were not real. Locke specifically noted in its timeline coverage that AI-generated content was circulating and asked people to be cautious about what they were sharing. A pool party photo circulated on social media, including being shared by Ben Crump's own Instagram page as an attempt to prompt people with information to come forward. Crump was explicit. Reposting does not mean authenticating. Trayston Shepard confirmed to Rolling Stone that the party shown in that image happened on June 27th, a week before the trip to Horn Island. The viral confrontation video, which many people believed showed Nolan in an argument, was confirmed by Trayston Shepard, Nolan's own best friend, to show Shepard himself, not Nolan. The Jackson County Sheriff's Office has asked people to refrain from spreading unverified information while continuing to invite people with actual first-hand information to come forward. The sheriff himself, John Ledbetter, gave this public statement. Previously, we put out a call to action for the public to come forward with any information that they may have pertaining to the Nolan Wells case, and that still stands as of right now. We're still asking for valuable, factual information that pertains to this case. Please come forward. Contact the sheriff's office. Even if you may think it's insignificant, every little bit helps, and it may be a bigger contribution than you think to this case. We want to give you our honest analysis of where this story stands, clearly labeled as our interpretation of the confirmed facts, not as a conclusion about what happened. Here is what we think about the confirmed contradictions. The most important unresolved question in this case is not whether Nolan drowned. The most important question is what happened between 3 in the afternoon and 4:31 in the afternoon on July 4th, the period between the last confirmed sighting and the boat's departure. Whatever happened in those 91 minutes, on an island 10 miles from shore with no phone signal and no witnesses who have publicly come forward with consistent accounts, is what the investigation needs to establish. The towing company audio is significant. Everyone is on board at approximately 4 in the afternoon. The boat leaves without Nolan 31 minutes later. That gap has not been explained by anyone in the public record. The phone is significant. If Snapchat showed no content from the day, and if Christine Wansley's description of her son's social media habits is accurate, then the absence of content requires explanation. The mutual phone inspection agreed upon on July 15th is one of the most important investigative steps remaining. The contradictions between what the friends reportedly told investigators about why Nolan stayed and what the girl reportedly told investigators are significant. Ben Crump's description of that conflict, one of them is telling the truth, one is not, is the kind of discrepancy that grand jury proceedings are specifically designed to examine. On the racial dimension, we think the measured position of the Jackson County NOP is the right framework for now. Follow the evidence. Do not jump to conclusions before the facts are known. The history of Mississippi creates a legitimate reason for the Wells family to want independent oversight of this investigation. That distrust is earned by history, not invented. And at the same time, 60 witnesses have been interviewed, the FBI is involved, an independent autopsy has been conducted, and a grand jury is being convened. If the investigation is being done to find the truth will emerge. What we do not think is helpful or responsible is the circulation of AI-generated content, unverified photos, or death threats directed at people who are not yet confirmed to have any criminal culpability. Tressiston Shepard, Nolan's best friend, is receiving death threats. That is not justice for Nolan. It is chaos that makes the investigation harder. Nolan Wells' family deserves answers. They deserve a thorough, transparent, independent investigation. They deserve to know what happened to their son on July 4th, 2026. And they deserve to know before whatever is in his phone, in the autopsy results, and in the toxicology report becomes a public document, so that they can hear it directly, with the appropriate support, rather than from a news report. On the night of July 3rd, Nolan Wells made his family salmon for dinner. He hugged his mother. He kissed her. He said, "I love you," and went out the door. He was 18 years old. He was going to start training camp in 4 days. He had friends who described him as a blessing. He had coaches who said his character spoke louder than his accomplishments. He had a father who said he was the funniest kid in the family. He had a mother who is not sleeping because she is spending every waking hour fighting to find out what happened to him. He went to Horn Island on the 4th of July with people he trusted, in a place that people from South Mississippi have been visiting for generations, to celebrate the kind of holiday that is supposed to feel like freedom. He did not come home. 2 autopsies have been conducted. Neither result has been made public. A grand jury will be convened. Over 60 witnesses have been interviewed. The FBI is examining digital evidence. A mutual phone inspection is pending, and the waters off the northwestern tip of Horn Island are still there. The same currents, the same depth, the same capacity to take a life silently and without witnesses. Answers are coming. They will come through the grand jury. They will come through the autopsy results. They will come through the phone data. They will come, eventually, through whatever process the justice system runs. Imperfect as it is, contested as it is, watched as it is. We will be here when they come. If you are watching this and you have any information about what happened on Horn Island on July 4th, 2026, the Jackson County Sheriff's Office is still actively asking for it. You can contact them at 228-769-3063 after hours, or 228-769-3065 during business hours. And if you find this channel's approach to these stories careful, sourced, honest about what we know and what we do not, valuable, subscribe and leave a comment. Tell us what you want to see covered. This channel exists because of people who want to understand events rather than just be outraged by them. Nolan Wells deserves understanding. His family deserves answers. And the truth, whatever it turns out to be, deserves to be told properly. Say his name,